There was once a fisherman, Coughlin. He lived on the banks of the River Severn. And Coughlin was a shy man. He lived alone. He never had the courage to invite anyone to share that hut with him. Now the hut was high enough to escape the worst of Severn's moods and seasons, but it was close enough that he could always hear the river, and that song threaded in and out of his days and nights, and that was all he had for company in that hut. It was autumn. The salmon were running, and it was a beautiful golden day. Coughlin took his coracle and he put it on the river, and he started to paddle upstream. The sun was warm on his back, and he was headed to the place where the river bends, to the meanders, because he knew that while the current flows fast on the outside edge, on the inside edge, the water forms still pools where the salmon like to rest. He found a likely spot, a shaded pool with the willow branches overhead, and he nudged his coracle out of the current, and he began to fish. Again and again he cast his line, searching for that answering tug, but it didn't come. He knew that the salmon were there. They were down at the bottom resting, but they were paying no attention to him or his bait. All afternoon he fished, but the sun was sinking low in the sky now. He knew that it was time to go, but one last cast, one last time he sent his line into the water. Finally, there was a bite, a tug. He played that fish closer and closer until at last he flicked her up into the air, down into his lap. She was beautiful. The setting sun made her scales glimmer orange and gold. She struggled for a moment and then lay still, accepting on his lap. He found he couldn't do it. He couldn't kill her, couldn't take the life of that beautiful fish, and in one fluid motion, he stood up, pushed her back over the side, taking the hook out as she went, and pushed the coracle back into the water, into the current. He let the current take his coracle back down river. What a fool he was. All afternoon, a whole day spent fishing for salmon. He caught a salmon. What did he do? Throw her back. He was a fool. He was so busy cursing himself, berating himself, he didn't notice the sliver of silver that turned, followed him back downstream. The sun had set by the time Coughlin got back to his own little bit of riverbank. He splashed out into the shallows, picked up that coracle, stowed it by the side of his hut, and made his way inside. He went straight to bed, but he didn't sleep. He lay there staring up into the dark. But he must have fallen asleep, because he woke up. And there was the song of the river as always, but there was another song threading in and out. He went outside and the moon was full, and the whole land was lit up bright as day, but not like day. It was a landscape, a moonscape of silver and shadow. And he made his way down to the river. And there was a woman singing in the water. And she stood waist deep in the water, her hair spilling down, swirling in the current around her. And as he looked at her, she turned and smiled up at him. And he held out his hands, not shy in this strange dreamscape. She held out her hands, and the two of them met. They lay on the bank together. When Coughlin woke the next morning, he smiled at his dream. But there she was, still lying beside him. And as he looked, she opened her eyes, turned, looked back at him, and only now did he see the scar where the hook had been, the cut in the corner of her mouth. She said that her name was Sabrina, and she stayed in that hut with Coughlin, and they filled that hut many times over. They filled it with laughter and conversation. And then they filled it with love. And with love came children. And the two of them, their lives wove together in that hut by the river, and always around them was the song of the seven.